Awesome, Neil. Thanks for coming on. Um, yeah, I've never done this on a podcast, but I wanted to start with some poetry I wrote. And you'll see it ties in. But this is how it goes. I wrote this when I was in a rut, looking to I get through it, I guess. But it's I'm too into the moment. Sometimes it feels like coasting. I've been going with the flow now for so long. It's all I'm knowing. I've been crashing like an ocean. Now I'm floating, searching, hoping. Head down, pressing forward. Just keep going. Just keep going. So that's what pressing forward is to me. And I'll turn it on to you. What does press forward mean to you?
There you go. I appreciate that, man. That was awesome. The press forward brand for me is really fascinating because about 12, 13 years ago, I had been doing a whole bunch of early entrepreneurial things, trying to figure out how this whole world works when you want to like take like radical ownership for yourself in your own business, right? And I got referred by a friend to a branding agency, and the branding agency said, you know, we've got this really really cool, amazing personal branding exercise that we're going to put you through. It's tens of thousands of dollars, but it's worth it. And so I decided to invest in myself. I was like, all right, I have no idea what this is going to look like at the end of it, but I'm going to write this big check and I'm going to give it to this person, and I'm going to kind of trust this process because they said it's a very valuable process. And I think that a lot of people struggle to be able to do that, right? And so I go through this big, long survey, answer 50 or 60 different questions. Still, I'm like, WTF am I doing? I just paid thousands of dollars and you're just giving me this survey. And then I go through this interview process. And then I go through this other piece of the branding process. Then I go through this other process. And it takes about a month, month and a half. And they call me back into this meeting room, and the person throws it up on the big screen and basically walks me through this personal branding guide. And at the end of it, they were like, the name of your brand is Press Forward. And like this like weird thing happened for me. Like, this is what people don't understand about building a personal brand is like we're all kind of living and breathing it a little bit, but it needs someone else's, frame or someone else's shape or polishing to make it resonate. And so they gave me this PowerPoint presentation, and I sent it out to like 20 of my friends and clients and people, and I was like, "Oh my god, these people just changed my life. Look at how compelling this is." And every single person I sent that document to was not impressed by it at all, because they were like, "Yeah, that's you. Yeah, that's you. Yeah, that's how you operate." But for me, and I think for anybody who's building their own personal brand, you just need to realize you need someone to kind of organize it for you in a way that it kind of packages out for you. And so, you know, over that past 12, 13 years since then, that's been my personal brand. And a couple years ago, just to kind of like put the bookend on that story, I had reached out to one of my mentors, and to my mentor, I said, I'm feeling drawn to do something else. I feel like I've been all over the place the last couple of years. This journey of entrepreneurship is super wild sometimes. And my mentor looked back at me and said, I don't think you've been all over the place at all. She's been my mentor for 15 years. And she's like, what you do, Neil, is you create safety and security for others in all these different businesses that you do so that people can press forward. And that's really been a big piece of my work that I do in any business that I work in is I want to create safety and security for others so that they have the right tools and systems so that they can progress forward in their own journey in any way, shape, or form possible. And that's what press forward means to me.
I love it. So diving into that, when you're creating safety and security, what does that look like on a systems level? We've kind of set the emotion of the press forward and what that means to you, but on actual pragmatic level, when you're going in, you're working with business owners. What are yeah, how do you go about instilling that safety and security?
Yeah, really, really great question. So something that took me 20 plus years to realize, and a very significant thing is everything happens at the speed of trust. Fundamentally, when you trust something or someone, you can move to it very quickly, right? And that fundamental is critical. The second step of that is that before you have an emotional problem, you probably have a math problem in almost every walk of life. Like even in like people will challenge me on that and be like, that sounds a little bit like arrogant or a little bit of an ego and I'm always like, no, math problem. Like let's just say you're looking for um the right girlfriend. And if you can define the variables of like, hey, you want a woman who's kind, you want a woman who's knows how to cook, want a woman who whatever 5 or 6 things you're attracted to, and you're going to clubs looking for that woman, the math doesn't add up that you're going to find that woman in that space. So that there's always these mathematical variables that are playing themselves out at. And again, it comes down to everything happens at the speed of trust, right? So a lot of times when I work with business owners, it's interesting because you have to, if you look at the conversations you have, a sales conversation, a marketing conversation, an operations conversation, and they can't move to the next step, it's either A, they don't trust you, which is again where personal branding and building rapport and solutioning comes into it, or maybe they don't trust themselves, right? And like even in the world of coaching, people will be apprehensive about joining coaching programs. And it may not be the fact they don't trust you and your program, they don't trust themselves enough to complete the program. So they're like, I can't even move forward because I don't trust myself. Right. And that's, again, a big piece of this work that I've gotten to is I coach so many different businesses now. And this finite concept of everything happens at the speed of trust. And then if you build a system, the idea of building a system is the system is supposed to make it easier for you to execute on the thing. But then a lot of people, from an egoic perspective in your business, we're all entrepreneurs and want to do it our way and then think that we have to take the hard path when a lot of these business systems make our businesses a lot easier for ourselves.
Everything happens at the speed of trust. I love that concept. And so when let's say you've got a roadblock, you're working with a client, you're observing that there's a lack of trust. How do you distinguish whether that's a lack of trust in you, the coach, or a lack of trust in themselves, the business owner? And then once you distinguish between those two, what's your approach for either avenue?
Well, I think ultimately, I think that's where accountability comes into play. A lot of people, I think we've lost this kind of relationship with figuring out what the real reason is why we're doing the thing. And so when we start businesses, like a lot of people start businesses and don't have an outcome in the business. You don't realize, it took me years to realize this. Like if you are building a business that you want to sell, that's very different than if you build a business you want to get investment capital in and sell. Or if you're building a business that you never want to sell, those are three very different kind of models to build. And so if the first step of that is you have to have an outcome that you're seeking. I want to build a business and sell it. I want to build a business that is a cash business. I want to build a business with intellectual property attached to it. So there's a valuation to it. That's the first step, is you got to have a goal, right? Then where this trust piece comes into it, you got to look at to be like, maybe I don't have the right pieces to achieve that goal yet because I've never done it before. So then I've got to be wanting to either choose to hire people who are better at it than me? And then, or do I just want people who are going to do the thing I tell them to do? And then we have to build systems to support that. Like let's just say I love making pizza, like just to make it an easy, fun business, right?
Mhm.
Let's just say I love making pizza and I want to build a business where I make pizza all day long. But all I want to do is sit in front of the oven, make the dough, put the cheese, the sauce, and throw it in the oven. And that's all I want to do. But there's still sales, marketing, operations, accounting, logistics, right? And so if you don't have the, you know, appetite to learn those new things because those things are not interesting to you, then that's where you get excited about hiring somebody who's smarter or better at those pieces than you are so that you can say, hey, the only job I want in this pizzeria is to make the pizza. I make the pizza. I make the best pizza in town. Don't take me away from the thing that I'm really, really good at. And it's proven that in the world of entrepreneurship, anytime you see a business that like really does really, really well, it usually uses, there's one visionary entrepreneur who's usually a salesperson. They have a vision of the business. The second person is going to be the operations person. They're like the chief operating officer. They love systems and processes. They love tinkering with it. And then there's a third entrepreneur who's the financial person who's paying attention to the money coming in. So that one visionary can stay in their genius, as they call it, and they go, this is the vision for this company I want. The operations person goes, great, I'll build a system and process and give you that vision. And then the financial person goes, how the fuck are we going to pay for this? Right? Like, but if you have to, the biggest place where people fail in this world of creating their own businesses is if you have to wear all three hats all the time, you cannot be focused on those things and you're going to suffer in one of those spaces sooner or later.
So with most of your clients, what stage are they in? Is it bigger companies that have full departments for the vision, full departments for the operations, for the finance, or is it usually like a solopreneur who's trying to do all three of those things, and you kind of help them compartmentalize or maybe take a little load off their plate? Um, of those kind of three s- categories of business, where does your role fit in exactly?
Yeah, so great question. I'm a kind of a little bit of an enigma in that many people will not. I have owned my own business. I've been on the executive team. I've worked in corporate. I've worked in Fortune 100 companies. I've been a solopreneur. And because of that, I actually coach the whole genre at the moment. In the Fortune 500 companies, I'm coaching usually on executive management team communication challenges, cultural stuff, right? Like we're trying to make the team move an aircraft carrier. What people don't realize about a Fortune 500 company is even changing one little thing in the system is like tweaking an aircraft carrier and making it go, you know, 2 millimeters in a different direction. It ends up in a completely different place on the map. Then I'm working with, mid market, small, medium, middle companies that are in that growth and scale. So they've already got all the departments in place, and now they're not trying to figure out the system anymore. They're trying to figure out how to make the system work better. Right? They know who their ideal customer is. They just need more of them. They know what their revenue model is. They just need more of them. And then I've got a handful of small businesses that are in various stages of either raising capital or figuring out what they need to get in place so they can move into that growth phase. And then I definitely coach a handful of the solopreneur people who are other coaches who I'm sharing my own coaching strategies and coaching tools with, or a doctor who's running his own practice, who's probably got people working for him, or an accounting firm, or something like that. And a big piece of the work has been recently we become so immersed in our businesses that we end up feeling, we've all been there, like we don't have enough time in our day. And so I've been coaching a lot of people in all those different verticals and categories on how they can buy back time in their day.
Super cool. So this is the Quality Values podcast. I'm not. I don't like to ask directly like what are your values, but when I sense them coming through, I like to dig in a little bit. And what I'm kind of feeling on this side of the Riverside video calls, um, you've got a knack for. I would call them like high leverage. These high leverage details, like you were mentioning the aircraft carrier, just like calibrating it just a millimeter or a degree might change the course significantly in the end. And you're talking about things like trust, um things like these high leverage little details. Is that a fair assessment? Am I picking up on that? Is these kind of like emotional, making sure everyone's like in line with the mission, is that kind of a part of what you do?
I mean, I think that's a big piece of what I do. I think a big piece of what I help people with is I've been joking around the last couple of weeks and realizing that one of my superpowers has become reminding people who the fuck they are. And I mean that from a context of so many people have, for some reason in present day, they will value other people's time greater than their own. And for some reason, they then struggle on why people won't value their time. And so a big piece of that is teaching people, reminding people that like your time is valuable. This time that you and I are sharing together is precious to me because I value my time so greatly. And I think that we're equals in this conversation, in this value of time. And so, therefore, I'm going to honor the time that you're giving me as much as I'm going to honor the time that I'm giving myself. And when you start to do that in business, it's very interesting, right? Like I can transparently, because it's public knowledge, when I coach into the corporate world, my rate per hour is $500 an hour. That is my coaching rate. I can say it out loud because it's not going to change ever. I'm never going to charge more. I'm never going to charge less. Right. So lots of coaches will be like, well, let's talk about how much I'm going to charge you, or let me lead you to a certain place before we talk about what the offer is. Now, I completely do have offers, but the only reason why I'm going to give offers is because I am actively choosing to discount my time because I value my time. So, and in order for me to value my time at $500 an hour, I have to be able to have integrity to that. I need to have accountability to that. I need to understand what I call the four cornerstones are, which means are when I coach people and decide to coach people, those cornerstones have to be met, right? And years ago, and not to slight anybody who still chooses to have an active job, but like when somebody goes and is gonna trade their time, let's just say somebody goes and gets a job at J.P. Morgan Chase. You are saying that I will exchange 50 hours of my week, and in exchange for that time, I will get job security. I will be able to speak to that logo that I'm working at. I will get health care. I will get some vacation time, right? But you're trading your values for a safety and security piece of it. And I've just gotten to a place in my own career where I have chosen and I train people on how to get more control over establishing their own control over their own safety and security, and then be compensated for that time effectively. And then that being built on the values that you stand for. And when you bring those things together, there's a freedom involved in that.
Yeah, that's super cool. I did a podcast with another guy probably a week or two ago, and he was another coach, and he was super organized about tracking the value that he's giving his clients. Now a lot of the things you're talking about might be harder to track. Is that something you do, or do you just, this is your rate? Um, you know that you're worth it, and you work with the clients, and they know it's worth it as well. Do you track like the dollar value of the systems you're implementing, the changes you're making with them, or do you just sort of let your work speak for itself?
We 100% track the value of the coaching that we're delivering to people. I think one of the most interesting things is understanding for people whether or not they are um, coachable to the outcome. And I think that, if some what I bring to the table on my coaching is, I've got 20 years of working 18 hours a day, and I did that for most of those 20 years in a bunch of different industries, in a bunch of different verticals, and a bunch of different models. And understanding that, like, when someone says, like, I've got a goal, right, a business goal or even a life goal, right? If somebody says, as someone who's done it, I want to run an Ironman, right? And I've done the Ironman a couple times. And someone says to me, as a coach, because I pay coaches to coach me all the time because such a believer in it, in 6 months, you will be able to run the Ironman. It's still up to me to run the Ironman, right? But my coach had taught me how to run, swim, and bike long distances of time. And probably if I would have done it on my own, I probably would have had to train for 18 months and I would have done it eventually, or I would have failed at it a bunch of times and given up instead of doing my first Ironman 3 years ago and on my first try, finishing my first half marathon. And so that's an experience of when somebody has a clear goal, that's easy to measure the ROI on it, because you can say, I will get you there in this many months, because everything happens at the speed of trust. And before you have an emotional problem, you have a math problem, right? Because I practice what I preach. Now the difference though is that a lot of people who have never had coaching before, or are feeling stuck, or don't know what to do next, or suffer, or allow them to suffer, or whatever it is you may need to get 3 months of coaching, and it may just be unpacking the fog or the noise in your head, and having someone give you permission to feel all the feelings you need to feel, just so you can get to a place where you could be like, I now understand what my goal is, but it took me 3 months of just pouring through ideas and thoughts in order for me to get there. And the final thing I'll add to there is that when I first started coaching, I was very matter of fact and very brass tacks. Somebody came to me and say, I'm stuck, I would try and get them unstuck. Someone comes to me and says, I'm upset, I would try to make them figure out how to be happy, right? But through the thousands of people that I've coached, what I've realized in today's world is that when someone doesn't have a goal in front of them, and they're feeling this stuck feeling, not knowing what to do next, all that type of stuff that we all have at some point, I always say this: spend 2 weeks getting good sleep, getting good exercise, drinking water every day, like hydrating yourself, eating good food, go and have a couple social events with friends, be around humans. And the sixth one would be go have good clean sex. And if you can do those 6 things for 2 weeks, I guarantee you half your problems are going to go away. But you have to focus on the basic necessities. And really, I think a lot of the problems that people have is that they're just not focusing on providing the basic necessities of what makes us human, which are those 6 things.
Yeah, I've noticed at times when I felt lost, it's been the times when I'm I'm in overdrive, and I've been in overdrive for a long time. And sometimes getting out of that rut is just a matter of establishing healthy routines. And it's amazing, it's if I have just it, I've always thought it's 1 week, probably 2 weeks is better, but if I kind of just get myself under control for a week and hit all my targets, decisions get much easier to make, and the decisions I do make, I stick by. They resonate um, through the future. Whereas decisions I make in a fatigued state, they don't seem so good, and I start shifting, and that kind of gets me to my next question of scope and defining scope and avoiding scope creep. Um, I'm a trainer, and maybe we can get into the Ironman training since that's something that I've thought about doing myself. But with training, I like to set either 3 or 6 month goals, um, and it depends for each person. It might be a body composition goal, it might be an ability goal, um, but it's like, all right, you're going to do this many times per week. We're going to try to get there by this date. So with your coaching, how do you go about setting the scope and defining that so that it doesn't creep and people don't kind of shift what their expectations are as you go?
Yeah, I love the question. It's interesting because if you think about it, there's really, I mean, I know there's a lot of people who niche down into different coaching verticals, and they'll say, I'm the relationship coach, I'm the writing coach, I'm the this type of coach, whatever it is. But there's really only two types of coaching. There is the systems side of coaching, which is, do you have the systems? And then there's mindset, right? And so as a trainer, you're kind of doing a little bit of both, but I would say predominantly what you're doing is systems, right? If I want to lose 20 pounds, if I want to do a body recomposition, here's the workout that will get you there, the math problem, right? And then there's the accountability to you doing the thing that the system that works. Now, the other piece of it, and this is the piece where a lot of people fail, is it's going to take systems and mindset. And a lot of people don't have the systems, right? But also they just don't have the mindset for it because they don't believe that the system actually works. Again, everything happens at the speed of trust, right? And in the Ironman training, but like it's like someone gave me a system. There's even like a website, like I forget what the website is, don't quote me on this, but it's like how to run the Ironman.com, and basically they break down like a whole year where like day one is like walk a quarter mile, day two is walk 600 meters, by day 10 you're walking half a mile, and all this website breaks down the whole system that if you just every day follow the system for a year, they know your body will be capable of running an Ironman, but you still have to have the mindset piece of it in order to do it. And I'll give you a really good example, because what I say to people is, this may be a little controversial subject, but I think it's okay, and I think a lot of people have lost this mechanism. I think people need to learn how to go to war with themselves in their minds. And I realized this about 3 years ago. Um, I'd been in a relationship with somebody, and I had ended the relationship, and I was heartbroken over it. Heartbroken, like grief. And I was in my bed for like a week. I was doing coaching calls from bed off camera. Like that's how it was. And after I grieved for the week, I was like, all right, you got to get your shit together, man. And so I hadn't been in the gym in months. And I went back into the gym that one day. I had paid for the subscription and never gone to the gym like we all do sometimes. And I went into the gym and did like, I don't know, 5 minutes on a treadmill, and then the excuses start creeping in your head. Gym smells, too crowded, can't forgot my AirPods, and I got off the treadmill and I walked out to my truck, and I turned around and I said, "We're not doing this." Went back in the gym, hopped on a machine, did like 3 sets. Back of my head, excuses started coming up. I don't want to be here. I want Chinese food, blah blah, whatever the thing is. This went on for about 20 or 30 minutes. I went back and forth to my truck like 3 or 4 times. People watching me must have thought I was going through like drug rehab or something. Like this is how it was. And that went on for 14 days for me. And on the 15th day, that was the first day out of the 15 days that I woke up and said to myself, I'm excited to go to the gym.
That's
And
awesome.
people don't realize that it is, even with the system, it's going to be the mindset that's going to make you there. And I mean, that's a little bit of an extreme version of it, but we go through that every single day in every single thing that we do. We need to have a system in place, and then we need to override the comfort zone of the current mindset in order for us to get there. And especially like the body is the gateway to that change, because you get to see results all the time. You'll always, maybe the results don't come fast enough or the way that they used to for you, because you're a different age bracket than you were the last time you were serious about something. But the body is the gateway to unlocking everything else.
Yeah, I love that. I always suggest to clients that, especially the ones who are coming in, maybe they haven't been to the gym in years, or maybe it's their first time ever. I always say, just get in here, sit, do the easiest possible workout. But if you come in, you for 3 weeks, I would say, however many times per week you want to go, whatever you want your routine to be, 3, 4 times a week, come for 3 weeks, that many times per week. By the end, you're going to start getting excited. You're going to start to get curious. You're going to start to explore. So yeah, I love that example. And for what it's worth, I don't think anyone in the gym watching you go back and forth between your car, they've all been there. You know, everyone who's gone to the gym knows what it's like to get back in flow or get into flow for the first time. All right, I wanted to ask. There's something you mentioned earlier. It's been kind of bouncing around my head since you mentioned it. I wanted to dive in a little bit there. You said that a big part of what you do in coaching is reminding your clients who the fuck they are, and it's one thing to do that, but I think the hardest part of that is learning who they are in the first place. So when you're working with a new client, how do you get to know them? What's your process? Since that's not like straight business, you know, that's people skills. And so yeah, what does it look like? What are the first few calls like? How do you get to know someone? What motivates them? What their goals are? Uh, how they operate? What's your process like for that?
Yeah. So I love that you honed in on this. I think this is an important differentiator in the way that we work with people. Is our first onboarding session is not any coaching at all. It is like really digging into like who that person is, because I think a lot of us, myself included, think that we have what it takes to do the thing. And so there has to be this like reflective moment to be like, hey, if you want to be a business owner of a $5 million company or a $10 million company, and you're currently doing $1 million or 2 million, like you have to, I ask people, do you have the tools and systems to do that? Like, do you, and some people will think that they do. And now, because I've run businesses of that size and larger, I think a lot of it is asking those right questions to be like, you don't realize what goes into those businesses. And there's this moment to realize that I think while we all have our individual strengths, there's this realization that we're, as humans, we're really not that different. Like we all want predominantly the same things. We may want them in different ways. And then in businesses, and this piece of like, I just coached somebody today through a very hard conversation, and they're running a $3 million a year business, but they're not experiencing the wrong problems, right? And I think that's a big piece of reminding people is like, at every, I'm going to be 47 years old tomorrow, and I only want to have the problems of a 47-year-old, because those are the problems you're supposed to have when you're 47 years old. I don't want to have the problems of a 16-year-old at 47. Right. And in business, the same thing happens when you're starting a business. You want to have the problems of somebody who's never run a business before. When you get your first couple dozen clients, you want to have the problem of the person who has too many clients, right? And as you scale into 1 million and 2 million and 3 million and 5 million, you want to make sure and do a diagnostic with people. And that's what I do, is be like, what is the problems we're trying to solve? If you're running a $5 million a year business and you don't have the right systems in place yet, and that's $1 million business problem, we got to go send the elevator back down, and we got to go back and fix those problems, because we want you to have good problems. And like imagine, for you as a trainer, I can tell you right now, your biggest problem is getting more clients. It's always going to be the same thing. And so you want to focus on how can you get as many clients as possible constantly, because it'd be a better problem for you to have to figure out how you're going to deliver on all that, versus like, if you don't have enough clients, you're still juggling all the time. I don't have enough time to get more clients because I'm trying to deliver to my clients. And we all fall into that rut of trying to juggle all the things. And so when we go through our diagnostic, the first step is we highlight if they are juggling, and then highlight the fact of you never actually get any better at juggling just by juggling. You get better at juggling when you drop something, because then you have to realize why you dropped the thing, right? And then we take them through kind of a proprietary process and get some clarity on what it is they're actually trying to achieve, and then build the systems in place that they're trying to use to do that, and then holding them accountable to that process throughout the entire experience.
I love you just brought that up. Honestly, when you're talking about solving the problem of servicing the clients versus solving the problem of getting more clients in, that I'm realizing that maybe my focus is misaligned. So I'm glad you're bringing that to my attention. That might shift my priorities a little bit. So appreciate that. All right, I wanted to ask about podcasting. This is, I forget exactly, episode 43 or something for me. So I've been doing it long enough to, I know I'm a podcaster, but still new in the area. You've been doing it longer than I have, so I'm curious what's been your experience in the podcast? How do you use it concurrently? How does it jive with your business? How does it help your business? How does your business help it? Kind of what role does it play with everything you're doing?
Yeah, I mean, some people would tell you that the podcasting industry is saturated, but I think it's still just great. I think the one to many possibility of being able to record one interview with people and have it go to hundreds or thousands of people is
Yeah.
such a compelling opportunity. And then obviously, because you can take long form content and strip it down into short form, clips and reels and stuff like that, is really compelling. Um, the ability for you also to go with what they call a GTC model, which is a guest to client model, where you're interviewing people and then converting them to clients afterwards, is pretty compelling. And bang for your buck wise, um, I think that it is just the best use of time more than anything else, because if you're going to hop on when I was first started recording my podcast, I think we were recording 20 episodes a week for like 3 months. And we were just cranking out episodes, and you just get so good, right? And I think that people don't realize that, the skills that you have to mature in podcasting. Look, what we're doing right now, it's improving your people skills, it's helping your conversational skills, It's helping you articulate what it is that you do. I'm articulating what I do really well. And all of that can be applied so many other places. You create some viral internet social media post that took you 20 hours to create. Most people can't create those over and over again. And so you don't really like I have TikToks that have millions of views. I can't tell you why they did it, what I did that was different, and yet I can speak to it, but in a podcast you could be like, "Oh, this was a great podcast. I should recreate that." Right? And I think that's a powerful piece about podcasting. And then it also gives you access to people like we're doing it. Like we're the only reason you and I are colliding is because we were introduced together, but through a mutual connection. But like the chances of you and I meeting in person outside of podcasting is just slim to none. So it's an amazing opportunity. And I always say to people that they should never turn down the opportunity to be on someone else's podcast.
Yeah, well, I'm certainly appreciative of you coming on. I'm curious. You mentioned in the beginning you were doing 20 a week. How did you manage that? How what kind of outreach were you doing, or what kind of groups were you in? How did you get that many guests?
Yeah, happy to educate you on that one. So we created a process. We created a form, and we used Calendly for booking, and then we used a survey form. I think it was like a Google form, and basically it was just DMing people and being like, "Hey, I've got a podcast. I'd like you to be on it. Here's the system." And the thing is that like people love a good system, so um the form talked to, the Google form said, hey, what are things you want to talk about, what's something we can elevate for you, a couple other qualifying questions, and then it's pretty seamless. Like it took us like a day to build it, but it was DMing somebody saying, I want you to be on my podcast, here's a form. If you fit within the vibe of the whole podcast, then here's the things we want to talk about. Here's an automated link to schedule your call. And it was great because I think the first 100 or so podcasts that we did, at least the first 60, we recorded in the first month. And then we got to sit back and just release for like 2 or 3 months because we were releasing like one or two a week for like 3 or 4 months.
That's cool. Um, yeah, I love it. I appreciate that. I'll definitely incorporate some of those. I don't have the form, but that's a good idea.
You don't have the form yet.
Um, yet. I love it. All right. One last question, and I just when you signed up, and I saw your name for the first time, I had to do a double take. My middle name is my mom's maiden name. It's Conlon, Conlan. I just had to ask, are you Irish? It's an Irish name.
It is an Irish name, so I am 50%. I don't look it, but I'm 50% Irish on my dad's side.
That's awesome. And I don't know the exact history of that name, but I figured it had to be. And then the beard. I have to ask about the beard. How have you always had the beard? Has that always been a part of you?
It's funny that the beard has become definitely part of the personal brand. Um, so I originally, having come out of the military, was shaving my face every day for years and years and years and years, and then finally one year I grew a small beard, and my youngest daughter just loved it, and so I kept it. And then um, this funny thing happened where when I was running a cybersecurity company, I realized that all really good cybersecurity people had beards. And so I actually kind of built into this personal branding experience where on the bottom of so grew out the beard, much even double the length that it is now. Um, in my signature of my email, we actually started referring to me as the bearded one. Um, and it actually became a thing. Like people would say, is the bearded one coming? And so now I've been through this big evolution of it, but like for some reason, I can grow it, chop it, cut it, let it grow out, do all the things to it. Um, and it seems to be recognizable enough to incorporate it into kind of how I'm known.
Cool. I love it. It's starting and ending with the brand. So you've got the beard, and then at the beginning we talked about Press Forward. That's your podcast. Where else can people find you if if they're interested in your coaching, your content? Where are you on the internet? And I'll include all links in the description everywhere this is posted.
Awesome. Yeah. So most of the social media links, it's I am Neal Conlon, NEALCONLON. Website is www.nealconlon.com. You can Google me. I'm on every single platform, every channel. There is tons of content littered all over the internet. So people can definitely follow me there.
Awesome. Well, thank you. Shout out Devin Sizemore for connecting us, and
Love
yeah,
that.
appreciate you coming on, Neil.
Yeah. Thanks for having me. I love that you're doing this, and you should definitely keep doing it for sure.
Yeah, I will, and thank you for that.
Yep. Sure thing.